Hey everybody, this is Dan with Pain Free You. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Joe from Michigan, and Joe volunteered to share his success story. And Joe, why don't you introduce yourself and take us on a little journey with your experience with this mind-body world?
All right, yeah, thanks, Dan. My name's Joe, and I've been healed now for about almost 3, 4 years now. But let's go back to when this started. It started 9 years ago, and I never thought I'd get out of it. But my issue was histamine intolerance. This is what my major issue was eating foods and having reactions. So it all started out when one day I just started itching. I had no idea what histamine intolerance was, what any of this stuff was. And this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm not going to say exactly what was itching, but pretty much everywhere. And so this went on and on and on. And I kept going to doctors trying to figure out what was going on. I had my wife looking for head lice in my hair, I was using different soaps, for my body. Um, and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. It was driving me absolutely crazy. I couldn't sleep. So then it went on for at least 7 months.
Wow.
And then I said, I had an idea. I was like, well, I'll get on Google. I had been Googling this the whole time, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Now I should have grabbed my notes. I've got notes that thick, the size of a dictionary of every single day for 5 years that I suffered with this. And every single day I wrote down an Excel calendar, like what I was eating, what the reactions were, what was going on. So I can remember everything that happened. And
Right.
so what I did is I went on Google and I'm Googling my symptoms and stuff. And somebody mentioned, well, you could have celiac disease. And I said, okay, there's some hope here. So I went in, I got tested, I had an endoscope done, and they found flattened villi in my stomach. And they said, I've got the order here, and it said potential celiac. When they read it, they said potential celiac disease. They saw something that looked like celiac. So I reduced gluten and I said, okay, let's reduce gluten now. I cut what I thought was gluten out of my diet, and lo and behold, for a whole week, it all went away. I felt fantastic. And I was telling everybody this was it. Somehow I'm allergic to gluten. So, and I have celiac disease. And then, so that after that week, it started up again. And I looked at a couple of things and spices and things like that I was putting on my food. And I'm like, oh, this has gluten in it. That's why. Cut that out. I was better again. And then I got a genetic testing done for celiac disease. And they said, nope, you can't have it. You can't have celiac. And then, of course, all the symptoms were going on, worse. But here's the issue. I tried to add back gluten. At that point, I couldn't. So when I tried to add it back, I already took it out. I could not add it back. It took my symptoms from an 8 to a 10. I mean, unbearable. And I mean, you see physical symptoms. And so people are like, well, I've got this, I can see this in my skin. No, I had physical reactions. I'm not going to say what they are, but you could clearly see them. And it's amazing to me now that the mind was doing this because I look back now and I was under a ton of stress and tension from my job, and that was the point where my brain just decided to suppress all that through this. And so here's what happened. So then I found out I didn't have celiac disease, and it got worse and it was spreading everywhere. And all of a sudden I came upon histamine intolerance probably about 11 months later. And once I started getting on the forums and the groups, that's one thing I don't recommend is, if you're in these groups and forums and about foods and this stuff's constantly in your brain, look at these groups and nobody ever heals. There's somebody that says they took collagen or whatever they take and they're healed, but within 2, 3 weeks you see them posting again, their issues are back. Nobody ever heals in these groups, and there's tens of thousands of people in these histamine groups.
Yeah.
And so,
I call those bad neighborhoods
yeah,
because you're learning to be terrified by other terrified people. And all you
right.
hear is the horror stories. And you're right, there's no success stories coming out of there. They're
No, no.
well-meaning. They're well-meaning people by all means. But they're not necessarily beneficial groups to spend time in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only success story I see in the groups is mine because I got out of them when I was going through coaching, and my coach said get out of those groups. But I went back in now that I'm strong, and I try to get people back out of the histamine intolerance. And so far, it's been good, but I'll get to that. So, anyways, it goes by now. I mean, I went through this for 5 years. We're a year in, and I'm reducing foods on this histamine intolerance list that I got on all the groups. That the only thing that wasn't histamine, didn't have histamine, is chicken and rice, basically. So I'll save you a whole year of me reducing one single food at a time out of my diet, and I felt better for a week, and then worse again, and then better, and then I try to add that food back. Impossible. Once you take a food away and your brain, it solidifies that that food was dangerous, and you make that connection in your brain, it's gone. See, that's how it works. The brain, like it'll, in my case, the people that I've dealt with, your brain searches like the environment. It'll give you all these reactions for a while, but then it'll search for something in the environment to relate it to. And if it makes that connection to foods or smells or the weather or anything, once it tries to sell you that connection. Once it sells you that connection, it's it's locked. It's
Yeah.
locked in. Just like back pain and everything else. I mean, I too suffered. Didn't just suffer from histamine intolerance, debilitating neck pain, and so that's another one that I had. So then time goes on. I'm
Okay,
down
so
to a
I'm
couple.
sorry, I just want to catch that. You said you had neck pain as well?
Oh yes, yeah, debilitating neck pain where I'd go sit at the I'd sit at the computer at work and I couldn't even move my neck. Like
Okay.
as soon as I'd sit down, like my brain was telling me my work was causing it just wouldn't let me. I mean, I could feel my heartbeat in my neck. So I couldn't. I'll turn down the I didn't mean to scare people with that,
No,
but
that's okay.
it went away. It went away, luckily, with all doing all these techniques. And so, fast forward a year and reducing foods, another year goes by, and at this point, my stomach has swelled up like a balloon. Um, and I got SIBO. A lot of people come to me with SIBO and stuff. They got SIBO, and SIBO's cause actually mostly from like stress. Everybody thinks like it's a bug or something, but it's mostly from stress. So I had to take some big pills, some huge pills for this SIBO. Now, at this time, I'm down to a couple foods. I couldn't take pills. But in my notes, I have this down that this was a hope of mine that I could take this pill and be better. So I was in a positive emotional state when I did this. And I didn't know that this is a whole TMS thing where if you're in a positive emotional state, you think this will work, even though it could be a placebo. It worked. Like I had no reaction to these pills. And I held that hope for like 4 years. I'd look back at my notes for this week that I took these pills and I couldn't take an aspirin. I couldn't even nibble one. It was so severe. And I'd look back and I'm like, how can I do that? And now I know why. Because I used the bring it on method. I said, bring it on. I ate the pill and I was in a positive emotional state. So I'm like, this is going to help me. And so, anyways, fast forward, I'm down. I was about 185 pounds at 6'2", and now I'm down to 155 pounds
Wow.
at 6'2", and not sleeping at all. 1 hour a
Well,
night.
it's still itchy, crazy.
Yeah, 4 years straight, 1 hour a night. Barely survived. Don't know how I made it, but I made it. And then all of a sudden I was at work and I was talking to a customer on the phone. I could feel the anger welling up inside me talking to this customer. And the suppression was so deep that I felt like I could fly off the handle at a customer. So I hung up the phone, and all of a sudden I got this migraine that my head just felt like it exploded. It didn't go away for 15 months, night and day, night and day. And I also related that, unfortunately,
For the
to
food.
one food. I had like 5 foods at that point. Now I'm down to two. And it was a specific class of food. And then when I added it back, the migraine never went away, but it would get down to like a 5. But if I added the food back, this category, it'd go to a 10.
Right.
And so I'm dealing with all those forms of TMS still. And then COVID hit. Now, when COVID hit, obviously there was an explosion of symptoms for everybody. I hear this all the time. But for me, it was particularly dangerous because I could only eat chicken and rice. And when I was eating 14 chicken breasts a week. And so when I had to go get 14 chicken breasts at the store, there was a limit of two
Oh,
at our store. So I'm hustling, going store to store, even trying to find food. So this is a whole new fear, a whole new trauma that's going on. And I couldn't find rice either because everybody stocked up on rice. It was the end of the world. So I couldn't even find food to eat. I was buying rice on eBay. So I was in this fear, in pain, can't sleep, in fear. And then I got what I'll briefly touch on this.
mhm.
If you have triggers, warnings, just don't listen to this part. But I got what they call chemical sensitivity, sensitivity to chemicals in the environment. Now, looking back now, I got that from being in this fear. My brain was in such a heightened state of fear that it latched on to another thing, then that it could say, okay, it was that, and now it gave me yet another thing. Now, granted, each time I got a new symptom, it would be worse than the last one, and it would make the last symptom go down to about a 3, and the new symptom would go to a 10. And now I know that's like a symptom imperative,
Right.
thing.
Exactly.
So at the time in my notes, I'm like, I don't know why I got this week, and this week I feel this way. But every week I was still at my lowest low. It was never better. It was just another form. So then I said, this is my life now. I called the suicide hotline twice. And
Wow.
as a Christian man, I've followed Jesus. I believe in Jesus, and the church was praying for me and everything. And I didn't know how I was going to survive this. Um, and I couldn't work anymore at the job. I was really successful in this job that I had, and I ended up calling a, a pain reprocessing clinic here in our state. And I talked to this woman called Angel. Her name was Angel. Pretty ironic, but
Right.
so then she said, I think I know what you have." She's like, "I just took a training by Dr. Howard Schubiner. I think you could have this mind-body syndrome." And she like read the first 5 chapters of his book. It's a free PDF or whatever,
Hmm.
or first 5 pages, and it just talks about what it is. People pleasers get it. Doctors can't figure it out. Granted, at this point, I've already spent $35,000 on doctors. I went to the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, U of M neurologist. They had me on prednisone, a steroid, for a year. Uh, uh, Immunologist had me on a prednisone for a year. They had me on I was tested for MCAS. They thought I had mast cell activation syndrome. Even though my TriPass was good, they said, well, you got to catch TripTaz or whatever, TriPass at the right time to actually show that you have it. So you use possibly. So they gave me an EpiPen because I was having all the stuff in my throat and all the stuff that they have. My brain was mimicking everything. And at the same time, I still had this migraine going. Um, and still not sleeping. And I also had, believe me when I say I had many other things that if you mention it to me or people reach out to me, I say, well, I had that. I did. I'm just not going to go over everything that I had. Um, I literally had everything. And so I met this woman. She told me Schubiner. I went immediately to Dr. Schubiner and I said, gave him my story. I still have my email to him. And I said, hey, do you think this would help? And he said, yeah, I think it would. Let's get an appointment. So then I reached out. Somehow I found Alan Gordon and I reached out to Alan. I emailed him for to tell me about your pain group. And I said, Alan, um, I need to get back some foods. I'm not going to make it. I was
Right.
at the end of my rope. And he goes, yeah, this will definitely work for getting back foods. He goes, I definitely think you have this TMS. Now, at the time, now this was 4 or 5 years ago, not many people in these groups had the food reactions. Like it was like a thing just coming up. It was getting in vogue then.
Hmm.
It just started flourishing. And everybody had the back pain and neck pain and knee pain. So when I'm in the groups, I didn't have any hope of looking to even searching the group. I could find anybody in his group of thousands and thousands of people that was suffering from what I was. So I was on my own trying to heal,
Right.
and I was like, man, I wish I just had back pain because there's so much belief about that
Hmm.
could be given off from coaches that had it. But I didn't. I had something totally different. So granted, so this the overall pain, the nerve pain that I had, the itching went to this nerve pain, and it was everywhere. And so that's what I was dealing with. That was the hardest part, and that's what I wanted to go away. And so I started working with Dr. Howard Schubiner. At this time, I found Dan's channel, Pain for You, and I know if you look back 4 or 5 years ago, you're going to see comments by me on there. I remember specific videos um, that I commented, and Dan commented, for me too. Every time I commented, he would comment, and I was going through. Now my pain never let up. Everybody's like, "Well, if you got TMS, maybe there some signs that it lets up." And I remember saying to you, "It never lets. I don't even have a 2 seconds without it. Not even. I can't even sit
Right.
down. I got to keep moving. It's so bad." And there's never a break in it. And so that was hard for me to believe. Now, let me also throw this in because I missed this part. At the time, I was taking antihistamine, and I took antihistamine for many years. And I weaned up, I stopped taking this antihistamine, and that's when all this started. So this is important to remember that my brain waited until I blamed this antihistamine for screwing up my histamines in my brain. I thought it was this antihistamine because right when I stopped taking it after years, this is when it started within 2 weeks. So that was the hardest sell and that my brain was selling to me that was impossible for me to get over. Even Howard, I had to talk to him relentlessly about this. I said, I damaged my histamine receptors. This is exactly why I got it. He's like, no, you didn't. You didn't at all. Your brain waited. And when you got off that, that was a perfect time for the brain to create the story that it was from that. And I find this to be the perfect truth because I've dealt with so many people who have weaned off of antibiotics, um, SSRIs, or barbiturates, and then they got this. And then they're saying it's from weaning off these medications. And I've had so many people heal the instant they've heard this that, wow, somebody else blamed it on a med and it wasn't. And this Joe, he made it through. Well, it was never this antihistamine, which boggles my mind that it was not this. It was all my brain the entire freaking time.
Right.
It just it's insane. So I worked with Howard. I started working with him every single week, and I was on your channel asking you questions. And I also met with Steve Ozanich. He was a huge help too. I read his books, read Alan Gordon's books. Dr. Sarno, obviously, I mean, wow, I forgot to even mention this, but I guess I'm getting this point. He's the reason why. I mean, Dr. Sarno figured all this out. Sarno never even, I don't even think he even thought about, I mean, it wasn't even, histamine intolerance wasn't even a thing when Sarno was around.
Right.
It's only in vogue now. And he would just, I mean, it's just crazy. Most of his back pain. Now it went. And the one thing I noticed too, the observation I made in the histamine intolerance community, which there's tens of thousands of people in these communities I'm in, different ones, about 80% of them are women. And usually when I make that observation of people and the women that I've talked to, and they're like, wow, that is interesting. The men get the back pain and the women get the histamine stuff, so just because the brain can easily blame you lifting weights to throw your back out, or something, same with a woman can, but most of them I found they'll get histamine intolerance. So working with Howard over weeks and weeks, I always want to say that people don't put a time frame on your healing. For me, it took almost a year. Some people just take instantly, some week or two, or a month or two. And I how did I win the foods back? So that's the important part. So then,
Yeah.
first of all, I had tremendous fear around the foods. Even though Howard says, eat the foods, try a little bit. I was trying nibbles. I'm nibbling on little food every day, and I'm journaling and I'm not getting better, and I'm not. And it's weeks and weeks and weeks. I had a little bit of a breakthrough on the chemical sensitivity one day doing techniques. being in a positive emotional state. When I first heard about this TMS,
Hmm.
I beat one of my TMSs that week, and I was like, all right. So I knew I had it, so that I was working on it. But how I won the foods back, little nibbles never worked. I tell everybody the nibbles didn't work. What happened was, after nibbling for months trying to get one single food, I couldn't win one back. I couldn't win one. And but all you need to win is one. Once you win one, the whole lie comes crumbling down. And so what I did is, like Sarno says, if you got back pain and stuff, you must fight it or it will continue. So you have to lift those weights. You have to bend over. You have to hit your golf balls, whatever. You have to fight it like that. And I tell it to people the same thing with foods. You can't defeat TMS by avoiding the foods to get better. You have to eat the foods to get better. And
Right.
I'm like, well, so you're telling me if I eat the foods, my pain will go away. That's exactly what I'm telling you. It only exists and perpetuates because of your avoiding the foods. So one day I'm at work, I'm having granted, I forgot to mention this, 2 years, 3 years of straight panic attacks all day long. I never stopped. So everything I was going through. So the panic was another form of TMS. And so then what I did is in the morning, I remember specifically sitting at work. I messaged Howard at 8 o'clock and I said, if I don't do something, I'm going to die. Like I felt literally,
That bad.
I was at the end of my rope. There's nothing else I could do. No sleep for years. And I'm skinny as a skeleton. I messaged Howard. I decided this morning I'm having a crazy panic attack. I feel like I'm going to die. I said, I'm going to McDonald's at lunch today and I'm getting a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. I said, I don't care if I freaking die. And Howard messaged me back. He goes, you can do it. I'm proud. He's like, remember Neo? Because we're talking a lot about Neo in the Matrix. If you could dodge you don't have to dodge bullets, you won't have to. And I related a lot to that. And that is a lot with TMS. That is a ton. You watch that movie and um, you won't have to. So what I did, I told somebody at my work, they all knew what I was going through at work. The CEO of my company, or the company I was at, he sat by me and just seen what happened to me over the last several years. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to McDonald's at lunch. I'm sick of this." I said it in my weakest voice I could say because I was so weak. And they're like, "Oh, I wouldn't even go to McDonald's. That'd make my stuff me sick." And I said, "No, because I know through my notes that that was a big offender, that food. So because I had ate it and I had all these severe reactions. So I went there. I did the methods. I brought it home. I sat at the table." And I said, I had the attitude of this, like us high school bullies picking on you, and we're at the basketball courts ready to fight, and I'm scared as heck, but I don't care. I just snapped in my head, and now I'm knocking the bully out. Like I had ferocious, my anger was now at the situation, and I came to the end of my rope, and I tell people that's how it is. You have to knock that bully out. And I ate the food. I ate that McDonald's and it tasted so good. And I was just like, and I'm drinking the Coke, I'm eating the fries, and my heart's just racing. Granted, I mean, I knew the
Yeah.
symptoms were
Scared.
coming. Like I knew the symptoms were going to come. But at this point, I didn't care. I did not care. I wanted them to come. I said, I ate the food and I walked right out of my house into the field. And I'm yelling in the field at my brain saying, bring it on. Because it would knock me out terribly. I mean, it would
Mhm.
be so ferociously bad. And I wanted it to come because I wanted a chance to face it, in this and I want to just rip it out. And
Right.
that's how I felt. And sure enough, I'm sitting there, I'm still talking to my brain, and nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And now I'm waiting, and I got an hour lunch, so I gotta go back to work, and I'm sitting at the desk, my heart's just racing, and nothing's happening yet, but I'm waiting for it. And I'm
Right.
still like, come on, come on. And nothing happened. I get to 5 o'clock, people at work are like, what happened? I'm like, nothing yet, nothing yet. I don't know. And I'm freaking out. And and granted, I just had terrible reactions all the last 5 years, and the reactions are gone. They're now gone. Like they're not even there after 5 years. And I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I came home, went and got pizza and ate some pizza that night. Did good all night. First time in 5 years. And then the next morning I got up, had that pizza again because I couldn't even have breakfast. I'm like, you know what? I'm bringing it on. I remember woke up scared, panic attack. I ate it again, some pizza. I got to work and I thought I was going to die. All of a sudden, my brain brought on this freaking ferociousness. I remember I text my mom, Mom, I think I got hypoglycemia or something. I think I'm having like a blood sugar crash or something.
Right.
And I messaged Howard. He goes, No, Joe, this is an extinction burst. You're onto it. It's extinction burst is going to go away. Sure enough, later in the day, I said, No, screw you. I'm eating again, ate again. And from there on out, it wasn't smooth sailing. Everybody's like, Well, Joe, I fell back. This was now me not reacting to anything. Like my brain went off and gave me all these symptom imperatives throughout the body. Anything that was trying to stick to me, and I just wouldn't let anything stick. I just kept dodging it. I'm not listening to anything in my body anymore. I'm not listening to it. And it was 6 months after I won the foods that I finally had probably 5 months, no reactions. I'd limited reactions for 6 months, but every time I had a reaction or anything, I'm just like, nope, I already won all the foods. This is just extinction bursts and symptom imperatives. It's all gone. So now, 4 years later, I'm completely out of it, and
Right.
it's a pleasure to share my story to go around, and I'm glad you asked me to.
Yeah. So, you mentioned, and you kind of hesitated about not wanting to talk about the visual symptoms. So, as you were getting all these itchiness and rashes, did you have like visible hives or
Yeah,
eczema or things of that sort? Because believe it or not, that's not going to trigger. That's actually going to make people with those conditions feel better. That if you had a bunch of hives along with the itchiness or eczema type of stuff or
yeah.
discoloration, like, so what was your experience in that regard? What could you see that said, yep, I'm sick? Look.
I would physically, I'm not saying where, but not in any bad spots, but I'm not going to give you an idea where, but I would get these bumps, huge bumps, boulders coming out of my skin, and they would be so painful, and they would almost be like a blister, and they would just come out, and and they would just bunch up in bunches, bunches of them all over, just bunches. And these were and they were very extremely painful, and you could see them a very real reaction.
Yeah.
And I would get my entire face beet red all the way down. I could take my finger and write my name on my chest and just see it welt up right by it.
And
Granted,
what
I
was that
also,
officially called? Was that just a histamine reaction?
yeah, they were saying just histamine reactions. Yep.
Yeah,
And
'cause I've got a friend who is like that. Literally, if she scratches, you can see the scratch marks like an hour later.
yeah, 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 exactly. And it all went away once I got the foods back. But the thing was, I paid attention to the symptoms so much that that's why they continued to exist because of the preoccupation with them. And I had my eye physically would swell, and it was so very painful. I couldn't even see. It was so very painful.
The eyeball or the surrounding area?
The eyeball
Wow.
itself. And I went to multiple eye people or ophthalmologists, and they couldn't figure it out.
And how about any visual disturbances? Did you have
Nope, no
no
visuals.
blurriness, no floaters, no nothing, but just a
No.
swollen eyeball?
Yep, yep. Painfully swollen, red, beet red. You could see everybody could see it, and it was just my brain turning on all these pain circuits, whatever it could to bother me, and many more. I mean, I mean, I couldn't even use any soap. I had to bathe in just water.
Mhm.
I mean, for like 2 years. I mean, it was so severe. So it's just amazing to me that your body can do and that your body can do this. And also, people, I just want to say, a lot of people say, "Well, his story's not me." That's not me because I didn't take a pill and stop taking a pill, or I just want to say that everybody says this is not them, but the truth is, I even said that, and
Yeah.
I overcame it too. And so, if you're having multiple symptoms that can't be explained by any doctor, it's usually going to be TMS. Granted, I went to many neurologists and gastroenterologists. I had three endoscopes, two colonoscopies through this. They found polyps. They found flattened villi. I went to naturopaths. They found all kinds of problems in my blood work,
Yeah.
all kinds of problems. But this is just a dysfunction of the chronic state of stress, fight or flight, no sleep, itching, irritability. Like this stuff throws off your whole body. And I was going trying to fix all these things the naturopath found with these pills that they were trying to give me. And I couldn't do it. And I couldn't even take
Never
the
solved the
pills.
root problem.
Yeah,
You know, the root problem was still causing the whole system to be out of balance. So it doesn't matter what kind of pills you take or probiotics, prebiotics, you know, all those things, you can't fix the body parts because the main control center is not operating it well.
right. Yeah. And people come to me and say, well, Joe, I took this pill and I feel better. I said, yeah, but what else is going on now? Oh, well, now I got neck pain. Well, yeah, it's called symptom impaired. You went from one thing to another. This is very common.
Yeah.
But
About the nerve pain. You said you had nerve pain all over your body. Was that like a sensitivity to touch
yeah,
along with
no.
itchiness, or was it like,
Um, I would say think about like when you get goosebumps. I just That's just like a visual of like all the nerves and stuff. Like that's how it felt goosebumps, but every part of my body, my entire body was burning alive. Like I would tell the doctors it was like I was under a sparkler that was on. The
wow,
sparkler was on and it was just raining down in my entire body, head to toe, fire and brimstone. So that's how it felt. Um, I don't know how I survived that. That was a year and a half of that.
wow,
The itching went to that, like it progressed over. And the way I survived that was even when I was going through it, knowing that it was TMS, I was so scared and it was so painful every day. You know, I was reaching out to Dan on things saying it never goes away. I'm burning alive. And the thing is now it was the attitude of indifference. Now knowing it was my brain, it's not a problem. What does it feel like? It feels like fire burning. Is it warm? Is it red? What color? The more you try to soften the blow that your brain is doing, the better. It takes time. This is not a day one fix. It took repetitive weeks. And, and I'm saying get a coach because without a coach, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, even though you get what you get in the first interview, you know as much about it takes repetitive person to put this belief in you, like repetitively, continually
yeah,
pushing this belief into you to get out of it.
yeah. So for anybody who's curious, Joe was lucky enough to live in Michigan where Dr. Schubner was practicing medicine, and his visits to Schubner were covered by insurance, which
Yeah,
allowed him to see Howard pretty frequently. Um, but I think what I want to get out of you today, Joe, is that you don't need to go see a doctor like Schubner every week to get better.
right.
Because what you've also shared is just as a courtesy to the public, you've put a couple of videos together and you're getting people coming back to you, commenting to you, reaching out to you, saying, I got better by watching your video because I finally found the belief that I wasn't broken and I had a path forward. And you talked about how, you don't nibble at foods to reintroduce them because if you're nibbling, you're saying this food's dangerous, I better go
Yep.
slow. But by saying, screw it, I'm going to get a whole meal and eat the whole thing, the brain goes, whoa, what's up with that? But I frame everything under the perception of danger. So when you're nibbling, you're fueling the brain's perception that food's the problem. I got to go slow, right? Whereas when you eat it all and say, bring it on, make it happen, the brain looks and goes, what the heck? Joe's not scared. He just ate a whole meal.
Yep.
And he's saying, come on, I'm expecting it, bring it. And the brain goes, where's the fear? And that's a hard place to be because not only did you have to have the guts to do that, but it had to be authentic. It's not like you're sitting there shaking in your boots. Come on, make it happen. No, I mean, no, really.
You're
You hit
right.
a wall. You got sick and tired of being sick and tired. You hit a wall where you basically said, I got nothing to lose. So let's do this. And you fortunately had, Schubner. um, telling you don't nibble, just eat. And it's funny because the foods are the things that seem to hold such a huge amount of fear. Not that the other ones don't, they all do. Um, but every successful food story, people overcoming it and reintroducing foods, doesn't come from the nibbles. It comes from people saying, well, I'm going to eat what I want, something that will taste really good. And then if symptoms happen, I'm not going to care. And then I'm going to do it again. Right. And so we've
Right.
had some people, one lady in particular, she went from three foods to eating whatever she wants. And now she's posting pictures on Facebook of like a full restaurant table full of like three appetizers, four entrees, and there's two
Yeah,
people at the
I
table.
know how that is.
And so it's like, I can eat anything, but it comes from a eat things you like. And if symptoms come, do your best not to care. And then do it again. And then
Yeah,
do it again. And then do it again. Like even Nicole Sachs goes, overcoming food is so boring. It's like you eat what you want, and if symptoms happen, you don't care, and then you eat more of what you want. And
right.
it's like it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but for the people who are very specifically saying I can only eat so much. And there's some people who say if I eat more than a couple bites, I bloat, I get uncomfortable, I get pain. So for those people, would you also say just eat what you want as much as you want?
I
Or
would because I had severe bloating, severe, and I told Howard, I said, it's severe. He goes, just ignore it. It's the same thing. So I'd ignore it, and then it ended up going away. Now, the bloating was like the last to go. But the more I just ignored it, the more it just went away. And I do want to reemphasize, when eating the foods that it was a very, I deal with some people and help some people. It's a very hard decision to make the decision to introduce the food. It's like it's like a life or death decision. So you come to that decision. Granted, I didn't eat foods for 5 years and almost nearly died because I couldn't eat the food. So once you come to that end of your rope, your brain knows, and it knows that you're now ticked off, and that's when you have that switch mentality, that's when you're gonna win. You're gonna win every time. You got to have that. It's the bring it on method, knocking out that bully.
that's awesome. I'm
And
trying
I
to think.
will say too, also like Dan mentioned, I did have three YouTube videos up on my channel. It's been going on for like 3 years now. I'm trying to create some more just to help people, but it's called the Histamine Deception. So my channel's the Histamine Deception. You want to go on there, you can comment. I still comment, um, answer comments on there and everything else.
The one thing I want to point out is when people hear that, anybody who's got food issues is it's going to jump out at them. Like when you first mentioned it before we started recording, you said the histamine deception. All I heard was histamine. I didn't notice the word deception. All I heard was histamine. I'm like, uh-oh, is this guy going to start talking about foods and how to like eat the right things?
Yeah,
No, we literally had a conversation before I hit record to make sure we're on the same page. So histamine deception is not Joe talking about how to manage your histamine levels and eat the right foods and do the right supplements to get your histamines right. What I clarified with Joe before we even started was that that was not the solution.
right.
That never worked for 5 years. That did not work.
Exactly.
It only started working when he got super clear that I'm not sick, I'm not broken. It's not the damn histamines. It's not a counter full of supplements. It's a decision to say, I'm going to eat.
Exactly.
And
It's a
I'm going to eat
deception.
foods that arguably might not be the healthiest. Like going to McDonald's is your first thing. Might not have been the most healthy thing, but it was the most impactful for making a kind of waking the brain up to go, I'm not sick. And food's not the problem that we've
Right.
believed for as long as we did. So I love that. Ever have any recurrences or you've been like rock solid?
No, no recurrences. I have, things now and then where my brain will pop up something like a neck pain, a barometer when I'm getting stressed. I have like a little barometer, like, okay,
Mhm.
you're pushing it a little bit, and doesn't bother me at all. And actually, I'm thankful for it because I'm like, I need some time to myself for, an hour just to relax. And
Right.
so I just got a little light barometer, nothing, no issues in my life.
Yeah. So now a couple of times I think you mentioned you would do the practices, like the mind body stuff. What did that look like for you? Like what were the things you did to kind of turn the corner? I know the food thing you went in depth there, but was there any other mind body stuff that perhaps you learned from, Schubner, Ozanich that really said, okay, because I believe it's like a 90% mindset game, but that
Yeah.
has
Oh
to
yeah.
stand on a foundation of clarity that you're not broken in the first place. But the rest is mindset, it's belief, it's courage, it's confidence, it's clarity, and it's how can I show that I'm safe? How can I think, act, and behave as if I'm safe, as opposed to walking around terrified, nibbling on, grains of food? So, what was your overall approach to this whole thing besides the going after the foods?
Yeah, I did a lot of what I learned a lot from Ozanich, a lot of the stuff suppressed anger and stuff. He taught me a lot about, if you love others, you will heal. I've dealt with a lot of people with a lot of problems in relationships and things like that, but love is a great healer. Talking with Steve, and there's a lot of truth to that. I worked on a lot of somatic tracking,
Mhm.
taking down the fear from the pain. I'd lay in bed I couldn't sit still, and I laid there purposely, and I focused on the pain itself, and I just in a light and easy state, and I would also focus on my breath and breathing, a feel good feeling. And so it would turn down the pain a little bit. It didn't turn it down at first, but it was just getting my reps in slowly but surely every
Okay.
day, just training my brain that this isn't dangerous, this pain isn't dangerous. I was talking to my brain constantly. I know it sounds odd, but constantly reassuring myself. Um, I would also recommend to everybody, I was doing fun stuff again. I was locked in my house. I mean, that's how bad I couldn't even go outside. And Howard nearly made me buy a jet ski. I told him I rode on my friend's jet ski on a Saturday once, and he said, and I said, I wasn't in pain. I didn't notice, I didn't think about my pain. And he goes, can you go buy one? It was a stand-up jet ski. Now, stand-up jet skis are hard to ride because you got to focus. So the
Why you
sit-down
didn't
ones,
have any symptoms? Because
exactly,
you were trying to survive by not killing yourself and drowning.
exactly,
Brain had
exactly.
a bet. Your brain had a bigger priority.
Exactly, yes. And every time that happened, it would give me more and more strength. Like, okay, this is definitely in my head. Now, granted, this is not in your head, folks. It's in your head, but it's not, it's very real. To me, it was,
Oh, it's
but
all real. Symptoms are
it,
absolutely real.
yeah, it's
Nothing
real.
is imagined. So
Yes,
don't take that term, it's in your head, as an insult, a criticism, or somebody telling you you're crazy or imagining it. All of these symptoms are brutally real,
right.
but they're created by the brain.
Yeah, there you go. That's a better way to state it. I just wanted folks out there know that, I'm not saying it's in your head or whatever. It's definitely real going on. And I don't want to scare people saying, well, it's real. It's not in my, it's created by the brain. So, but
That's
yeah, and after that jet ski, kept riding that slowly but surely. And one funny thing is I'd grab another offending food. I told you once you have one food, they all come crumbling down,
Mhm.
but they all lingered a little bit. You'd introduce another one, you get a little reaction. So what I would do, I'd introduce the food and I'd jump on the jet ski. I'd bring the food to the lake with me. And this was over the summer. And I'd jump on the jet ski and take off on it so I didn't have to think about what I just ate. And that was like a key to me of just not thinking about it. And then I'd get done riding for like an hour. I'm like, oh, I didn't have a reaction, and so that was the whole positive emotional state thing that's so key to healing. So if you have something, I had a guy talk to the other day, I said, eat the foods, and he loved basketball. Go play basketball, get something off your mind.
That is so key because so many people will say, I'm going to eat the food. First of all, they nibble, which says to the brain, the food's the problem, but they'll eat the food and then they'll sit there waiting.
Yeah,
Is it going to happen? It's going to happen. And with the expectation, the symptom comes. Schubner talks about predictive coding. If you expect something to happen, the brain can create it out of thin air, whether the food was a problem or not.
yeah,
So I love that idea of eat the food, then go do something fun.
yeah,
Get out of your head, get out of your house if you can. Just do something interesting and fun to take your brain off of waiting for the damn symptom,
Yeah.
right?
Interesting and new. Try something new too, because when you do something new, that new neural pathway, um, that's key, because your brain's now trying to figure out a brand new lake. I was on a brand new different lake and then riding a jet ski, trying to stay. It's like, you can't do all, it's like, and it's just so powerful. So those are just the tips. I know I'm leaving out a ton um, of tips and stuff I did, but you can find all this information too. So I mean, follow Dan's channel. He's got more tips, and I don't know how you come up with all this stuff, but every day there's
I
something.
talk to clients every single week. I got a bunch of people in my group program. I spend 12 hours a week with them. So all those conversations spark ideas for videos. The questions I see coming up, I make a video about. I'll see YouTube comments, Facebook comments, emails. Everything's a topic, and there's probably, two, three, four videos that I could pull out of this interview here, right? Just concepts that you're
True.
sharing.
Good.
So to the people who are terrified of eating, you're going to say, eat. Eat what you like. Don't nibble, because nibble says food's a problem. It's poisonous, so let me only take a little bit.
Right.
Like if you really want to overcome the fear, you eat what you want. Um, yeah, so that's beautiful. What else?
Yeah, as much as you can. Just like if you've got back pain, you've got to, uh, you know, I've read for people. I know, granted, I didn't have back pain, but
Yeah, neck
I've
pain.
read. I think Ozanich said that he had his wife hit him with a baseball bat in the knees
Oh, that's
um,
ridiculous.
when he was sitting down, so he could sit. And that's the point that I was also at. That's like the point of desperation where I don't care, kill me. That's like the point you get at with eating the foods. As soon as you do. Granted, you might not. Most of the people that I've seen aren't even at that point. They'll just start eating the foods, and some people just eat it because they're not. The reactions aren't horrible. So they're just like, oh, fine, I get them back and I win. And that's great for them. But there's people that are really have severe suppression from these foods. And that's those people have to come to the end of themselves. That's what it's like, where it's just like, you got to fight that bully today. Are you going to fight it today? Because you could be out of it today if you're listening. You could be out of it today. Right now, you could go get your power and eat. That's what I did. Go grab that food with all your power and say, bring it on and knock that bully out. It could be today. You could be out of this forever. That's what it takes.
That's beautiful. Yeah, because you can just imagine, the bully scenario, the kid who's getting bullied, who's timid, 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 shy. He's never going to get out of being bullied if he doesn't step up and punch the bully in the mouth,
That's right.
right? And so we're not encouraging you to view this as a war, a battle, a victory, but it's basically saying, I'm sick and tired of being afraid and terrified to do something as natural as eating, and I'm going to eat.
Yeah.
And I think it goes for most of this stuff. I've always said, in order to eliminate the symptom, you must be willing to feel the symptom.
Yeah.
So people are like, I'm in bed and I'm comfortable. I don't want to get out of bed. I've been in bed for 3 months. Okay, great. You're mostly comfortable. Now what? You still got to get back to life at some point. And it doesn't matter how long you stay in bed. If you haven't overcome the fear of being up and mobile and moving your body and all those things, it's just waiting for you when you do eventually get out of bed.
Yeah.
So the key is get out of bed now, even if it's just to go to and from the bathroom. Because some people can't even do that. They're on bedpans and all that
Wow.
stuff. But yeah, do laps around the bed, do laps around the dining room table, do what you can to keep moving because TMS is not the type of thing that bed rest will fix,
No,
right? Just like starving yourself doesn't fix food intolerance.
no.
You got to eat.
Yeah, you
Uh,
got to eat and you got to move. You got pains, you got to move.
Keep moving. But all of that, really, Joe, all of that stems from the belief and the understanding that my body's not the problem.
Right.
You saw some things with, the endoscopies and that what was it, the hairs in the lining of the digestive system
Yeah.
didn't look normal. That wasn't the problem. That was the result of a brain being terrified, right? The
Right.
SIBO. Those things weren't the cause of all of this. They were the result of an out of balance digestive system. My opinion. I don't know
Yeah,
if I don't know if you agree with that.
I absolutely agree with that. Everything they found in my bloods are perfect now. And I didn't, and I added foods,
Yeah.
what they told me to not to eat. So no issues.
Can I touch on the chemical sensitivity? Now, we're not trying to say this to say, well, if you've got all this food stuff, you might get chemical sensitive too. No, that's not what we're talking about. But for those, was there any amount of exposure therapy, if you will, that allowed you to overcome those? Was there kind of like how you went into the food and overcame that by eating chemical sensitivities? Was that kind of an afterthought win that it just started getting better when you overcame the food? Not that the food solved it, but just that the belief system and the fear dropped enough that the chemicals were less of a sensitive issue? Or did you have to proactively go after that with an exposure process for the chemical sensitivities?
Well, I'll tell people, if you made it this far and you don't have chemical sensitivity, you just have foods, you can stop the video, get your food back, go win those foods today.
Right.
But I'll say people that if you have chemical sensitivity, I will tell you it was worse than the foods.
Okay.
It was way worse. Although I had them at the same time, and the migraine was just as worse, But the chemical sensitivity was worse than all because I could avoid the foods. I couldn't avoid
Life.
smelling things. My brain turned on. I could smell like a drop of anything for forever. My brain wired in a superhuman power of smell. I could smell everything.
Yeah. I talk
And
about that all the time. My mom is the same. Now, she never had the alarming reactions. I think she might have had something years ago, but her sense of smell is like a superpower.
yeah,
And she can smell like that they cleaned the bathroom down the hall from her apartment before anybody. And I literally have to walk down the hall, open the door, and stick my face in to smell the bleach that she smelled from her apartment 60 steps away. So I agree with you. It's if the brain perceives smells, chemicals are dangerous, the best way for the brain to protect you is to amplify your sense of smell.
yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I never thought I was a good smeller my whole life. Everybody was like, my was like, hey, can you smell that? Can never smell anything until this happened. I couldn't even read Howard's book was the first book I was trying to read because it was freshly printed.
Yeah.
The ink was dry and I still could smell it. And it was creating that. I'm not going to say what pain it created, but it created an incredible pain. And so at that point, that was the worst thing because I had to go to work and I'm smelling everything. I'm telling everybody at work, don't wear the deodorant. What are you wearing? Like I'm freaking out. And
Let
I
alone
couldn't,
perfumes, God forbid, right?
yeah, I couldn't even drive in my truck because, the seats, the smell of the seats, the smell of cars going down the road, the exhaust fumes, it was getting worse and worse. And then I couldn't even open mail because if somebody wrote on ink on it was it was I couldn't believe it. So, but I'll say this, just like the foods, I took my worst offender and I would go and smell it. And I was like, I didn't care. And then I would sit there, I'd put it by my bed, and that was what we were just talking about. If you're sitting in your bed, it doesn't work like that. When you're sitting in your bed and you get a whiff of that, you're back freaking out. I had to do it when I'm up and walking around and positive emotional state. But I will say with the smells, the chemical sensitivity, which lasted a year and a half, that um it went away as soon as I got the foods back. Because when I got the foods back, I was in such a positive emotional state
You're
that
on top of
nothing
the
could
world.
touch me. Yeah,
You're on top of the
the
world.
positive emotional state, it's a healing state. It is a healing state. Um, it just went away. I mean, I during that summer when I was healing, I just had a couple instances of smells. I'd get a whiff, and I'm like, I'd get freaked out, and I'm like, I don't care, bring it on, whatever. I'd feel something, the surge go through me, and I'm just like, I just laugh at it. I don't even care. It didn't even bother me anymore. I knew it was my brain. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is just once you get that one TMS beat, just like it all, the symptom imperatives and everything. As long as you know it's coming, as long as you know symptom imperative may come and you're prepared for it, you got your shield on, you're ready. It comes, it just can't touch you, you know. But some people that don't know about symptom imperative, they get it,
They freak
and
out.
that sticks to them harder than the last one.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be like that. They should just come crumbling down after that.
Yeah, because the sooner you can respond to a new symptom with, I know what that is, I'm not worried about it, it goes away.
Yep,
But if
exactly.
you go, oh no, new symptom, what if this one becomes chronic? Then I'll have two, or then I'll have six or 10. People throw all of the fear and the attention at anything new, and it compounds, right?
Right.
You went from, your beginning to every symptom imaginable. But
And I
that's
tell people
the
too,
fear and the doubt kept on growing and magnifying.
oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, the fear is why it exists, you know, the fear and the preoccupation. Um, when you say ooh, ow, ow, it's funny because I say that to people too. If you're sitting there in your body and you're just going, ooh, yeah, and feeling all this stuff, um, that is what keeps perpetuating the symptoms. You shouldn't, my advice is do your best to not to react to anything in the body, not to, even if your thoughts bring you to something in the body, don't even react to the thought of it. So was my tip. Just if it's in the body, I'm not listening. I'm not reacting to it. I'm just breathing, you know, breathing,
Trust.
feeling good, and the things going on in my body can keep going on. Because I know eventually, if I stay in this state through repetitive, getting my reps in, it will go away. And I know it sounds like it wouldn't. When I was messaging Dan and stuff saying it's not going away, I'm here to say it eventually did. It takes reps and training to get your system down like that, but just don't react to it.
Yeah. I did a video not too long ago, which was kind of a repeat of something I did years ago called Are You Making Sound Effects for Your Symptoms? Which is like,
Yeah,
oh, when we
that's
get up from
that
the
is
couch. And that,
yeah.
not a good thing. I told people to turn it around. I'm like, wee, it's ridiculous, right? So, no, I like that you're bringing up some of these points, but yeah, do your best. I used to be really focused on indifference, and a lot of people are like, it's a hard word to grasp. And lately, as a result of this guy, Danny, who did a success story with me several weeks back, he used the word unbothered. And I like that word because it's
Yeah,
very easily understood. Indifference, people are like, well, what's that sort of mean? Unbothered to me is show up as unbothered, which is don't react to the
it's a good
symptoms.
word.
Exactly what you're saying. It is a great word.
Yeah.
It's actually a great word. Um, so anything else you've got? And I appreciate you spending a little bit of time on the chemical stuff and how your sense of smell, amplified. Once the food was overcome and you tackled that, the sensitivities to the smells also settle down, and the physical reaction to the smells also settle down.
Yep, that settled down. And then the last thing to go was kind of my gut health, where the body is just now just kind of repairing. And that took several more months afterwards for my stomach to kind of return to normal. So just like I said, once again, it's just like if you're bloated and things, just don't pay attention to it. Don't even look at your stomach.
Okay.
Don't,
So
don't,
just to clarify, from a gut health perspective, can we say that supplementation did not have anything to do with this? And did you eventually or initially stop doing that when you learned about the mind body?
yeah, supplementation. I couldn't even do a supplement anyways.
But
So I
so
couldn't
that
even
was
take an
not part of
aspirin.
your solution. The other
No.
thing I want to point out for people watching is you had spreadsheet after spreadsheet tracking every single morsel of everything you ever ate. When did you stop that?
When Howard told me to stop.
Good. Because I tell people, I'm like, why are you writing this stuff down? All that's doing is creating hypervigilance. It's
Yeah,
like the person who's got faster heart rates and they wear a heart rate monitor. Oh, it just
yeah,
went up by 5 beats. What does that mean? Am I in trouble? And then it goes up another 5 beats. And they're like, now I'm really in trouble. Stop looking. It's variable. It's going to go up and down all day.
it's just another form of preoccupation. If I'm not preoccupied with symptoms, I'm preoccupied with writing about my symptoms. and it's just a form of TMS. I had notes. I literally had post-it notes. I had two monitors at my office, maybe 50 post-it notes every day. I would change out daily. That's how much, I don't even know how I got work done because I'd have new thoughts and new things I had to write down. And I'd have like inspiration on, I had a note from you on one of them. And I just had all these things. And it was just a constant, another form. And that took me months to get rid of them. And Howard's like, stop, don't, don't write anything else down. He's like, yeah, you can write good stuff down if you have like good victory and stuff, but don't, because I was looking back at 5 years. I'm like, I've been through this for 5 years. That's going to be five more now because I haven't got better in five. I can read every day. People are like, well, you should put this in a book. I'm like, I don't want to scare people. If they read I've got everything for 5 years every day. So yeah, don't I dealt with a lot of note takers, and everybody they want to fix themselves. And the trick is to just not fix yourself. There's nothing wrong.
Right. There's nothing to fix. And the analogy I give a lot is how much time would you spend in the garage rebuilding the engine in your car if it was brand new and working perfectly?
Right.
You wouldn't spend time on it. So stop fixing, start living, do interesting stuff. I like the exposure stuff, even the chemical sensitivities to like literally,
Yeah.
but you don't do it while you're laying in bed terrified at the experience you're going to anticipate, but you're doing it while you're up and moving and um, just kind of proving this is not dangerous. And I
Yeah.
always say to people, I mean, we've got a wonderful detoxification system, and even if we get a whiff of some kind of chemicals or whatever, we're not getting it in any quantities to really have a significant impact,
Right.
which is more evidence that the system is just hypersensitive to these things, amplified, if you will, and it's overreacting to these things, but there's not a quantity strong enough, parts per billion and all that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
analysis. It's just a terrified brain acting as if it's been harmed.
I will say so too that just because your symptoms don't match my symptoms doesn't mean that you're different. Everybody from histamine intolerance from these communities have different symptoms with the foods cause them. Symptoms you wouldn't even think like that's impossible. It will cause literally anything your brain will create that could be a histamine intolerance issue that they would think. Now, once again, the deception, my channel, the deception, that means it's you're being deceived by the histamine. So it's
It's
a
not really.
deception. So just know that it's a deception, and I just want to people open people's eyes because there's millions of people, millions suffering with so-called histamine intolerance
And
and not being able to eat foods
it's not the
that
histamine at all.
nope, and it's not. And as much they believe that it is, it's just the belief that is perpetuating it.
And the fear.
And the belief and the fear, and the brain made the connection.
Fear and attention and a misunderstanding. As I say, your brain and your nervous system is working perfectly. It's just operating on misinformation and fear.
Yeah.
So if the brain believes you've got a problem with something, it will act and behave as if that's true. So that's why, to me, foundationally, understanding the cause of symptoms, determining that this is what's going on with me, deciding to accept that, because there's a lot of people who go, yeah, it makes sense. And it certainly looks like it's for me, but I don't know. It might still be the food. Maybe I better go get another test. Accepting that this is what's going on for you is foundational. If you don't, how are you going to possibly teach the brain that you're okay?
Right.
You got to just say, all right, this is the cause. It applies to me, and darn it, I'm deciding to accept that. So now I can begin teaching the brain I'm all right by the things
Yeah.
I do, say, how I behave, the things I eat, the things I smell. Um, so it's been brilliant. Is there anything else you can think to add or kind of?
I think we covered it. I'm glad. I feel like this one's going to help some people. I really do. I feel like this is a really
I know it for sure.
good conversation. I feel like it's going to
Awesome.
give God praise. I thank you, God, for that. I hope a lot
Yeah.
of people heal.
Well, every little bit of information that we put out there will help somebody. And so just the awareness of this mind-body approach, of the mind-body reason for symptoms, just keeps on growing and growing. And at the workshop where I met Howard in person and a number of the other leaders in the industry, it really felt like it was a movement. It was a mission to spread the word. And there were doctors, therapists, scientists, researchers, all working together to get the word about this stuff out there and help as
Right.
many people as possible. So you're a part of that. So I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate you deciding to share on my channel. I'm thrilled I was part of your journey, and that you still remember me replying to a comment on YouTube 4 or 5 years ago, because it's harder to keep up with these days, but nah,
Right.
I made it a point to try to get back to everybody. So I'm thrilled that I was able to help. And if I can ever do anything for you, you let me know. But
Appreciate that.
yeah, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much. Wave goodbye to everybody, and we'll
Bye, guys.
see you, folks.